Good evening and welcome to this edition of the Island Stat Sports Show. I'm your host, Earl Baston. Joining me as co-host, Jason Ford. Jay, this evening we will be speaking with David Maycock, who last weekend was active on the Pro Bowlers Association tour over in Maryland. He finished 26th. We'll talk to him about that performance, and he has another event coming up this weekend. And then at the bottom of the hour, we'll be joined by the Minister of Sport, Dr. Ernest Peets, to see or get some update on return to sports phases, anything you can think of. Strangely enough, today, a PGA golfer had some choice words for Bermuda because he withdrew.
Who was he?
But he came under a lot of stick. Not only from Bermudians, but also fellow PGA people and people that follow the tour, because he has chosen not to be vaccinated. And of course, you know the rules and the policies and so forth. He even swore and called us Nazis. So, which, to be honest, did not go over well with many. But the choice is everyone's to whether or not to be vaccinated or not. But then there are rules that go along with those things as well. So he had a choice. He chose his path. And that's where we lie. I mean, it was either get here, quarantine for X amount of days, or be vaccinated and follow the guidelines. And I'm pretty sure the other 128 golfers that will be coming in, because it's a field of 132 with 4 spots for Bermudians, the other 128 will follow the guidelines. And if one of them don't want to follow, somebody else will be willing to take their place. It's a pot of $6 million.
Well, you said it all. You said it all. And one man's trash could be another man's gold.
Oh, yeah.
and the first thing I said to somebody when they sent it to me, I said, well, he hasn't been traveling. Who is this guy? Does he travel? Because there's so many restrictions, especially going overseas now to any country, major countries. They're putting up these restrictions wherever you go.
Right.
Now, you're talking
even
about
his country. Come November 1st.
So even United States,
yes.
As you know, this week has been a lot of the media day for the NBA teams.
Mm-hmm.
One particular person was missing from the New Jersey Nets, or the Brooklyn Nets. I'm sorry, the Brooklyn Nets. Because he hasn't been vaccinated.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, I believe it went into effect, I want to say last week, or maybe sooner, indoors, players who are going to play indoors have to be vaccinated.
Yeah.
He cannot even train at the facility.
Right.
So the NBA is going to have issues with a few players, because I know last week there was a story of Andrew Wiggins out there in San Francisco about Golden State. That's another state that has taken these restrictions, and he tried to get exempted for religious reasons, and they denied him on that.
Yeah.
So San Francisco, New York, and I think there's probably 2 others that are really, really strict in that. And it's going to be interesting, because if this gentleman who thought Bermuda's just a one-off, he obviously he's not traveling, because he's going to find many places that if these tournaments are held, there's not going to be without. And once again, he does not have to get a shot.
No.
But if you don't, you're going to have to quarantine for X amounts of days.
Yeah.
So nobody's forcing you.
Yeah, no one's forcing you. No one's forcing you. You just have to kind of. It's your choice to either rip up your contract or follow the rules, one or the other. I mean, to be honest, the Kyrie Irving issue is not an NBA issue. It's a Brooklyn Nets issue. You know, the religious one went to the NBA, but actually they went back to the state, and the state said no.
And so let's think about it now. We're talking about professional athletes who have sponsorship contracts. Think of the Brooklyn Nets. They use Kyrie Irving to help sell tickets.
Yeah. Well.
So it's gonna be some issues going forward. We heard that from LeBron James that all the players from Los Angeles Lakers have been vaccinated, and even himself, he admitted that he was hesitant
Right.
initially. So once again, it's we even a story today. I saw a story today with passengers on a cruise ship that was coming here.
Right.
Once again, these are precautions that have to be taken because look at the predicament we're in now.
Yeah. If you'd have seen a post about midnight last night, you would have had a horror story. But then the real story came out, that or the official story came out that that would have put whatever was posted online last night around midnight or just after midnight would have given that organization some words of having to apologize to several organizations. But I know the organization will not because that's just the way they are. So
this day and age, man, especially with social media,
mhm,
causes so much anxiety.
yeah,
Not alone COVID, but anxiety of misinformation.
yeah,
And it's hard because when misinformation gets out there without one thing about journalistic stuff, and I speak to you about it because I'm not a journalist, obviously. I speak to you about it because journalism 101 is to get both sides of a story before you release it,
yes,
right?
yes,
Or attempt, or the attempt, and quote your sources.
hmm
Which not too many people do that. No. So once they see it on the internet, it's factual. Well, I
yeah,
don't know yet. I don't know yet.
yeah,
What's
yeah,
the source? Where did it come from? You
hmm
might have to check that source and that source. I mean,
yeah,
but all that does is create anxiety, especially
mm,
when you're talking about family members involved. So,
yeah.
mm,
Well, it's one of those things. Everybody wants to be first, not factual, first.
I don't get
Sometimes
it.
being first is worse than being right.
I just don't get it. I don't get it.
Yeah, yeah. But I did tell you that we'll be joined soon by David Maycock. We're just waiting him to get settled, and we'll bring him in. Actually, we'll bring him in now. Good evening, sir. How are you?
Here he is.
Can you hear us, David?
Yeah, I can hear you. You can hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. We can hear you.
He's in now.
How's everything?
Yeah, everything's good. Just here at the hotel. Just got into Orlando today. Just catch the plane from Washington Dulles Airport and just got into Orlando Airport
Okay.
about 1:30.
Okay. All right. So take us through last weekend. Obviously, you were in Maryland, playing in the Open, finishing 26th. But take us through. Well, first, actually, let's go back because you were recently representing Bermuda, and then you're into this professional tournament. So let's go back a little bit. Let's talk about that event you guys represented Bermuda and the challenges that you guys faced on a regular basis, on a daily basis in the tournament.
Yeah, we went out to Guatemala to qualify for the CAC games. A
Hmm.
couple of you guys went out there and we met Coach Farrow because you guys know we have a coach now. You guys got a
Yes.
little interview with him. So we met him out there. We did what we had to do. We qualified for the CAC games. So we'll be back at the CAC games. I think it will be in El Salvador, I think next year.
Chile.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hey, what's up, David? Let's speak a little bit about consistency because obviously bowling is one of those sports. Consistency is probably right up there with along with the mental side of the game. Averaging 200, 210 on the local island, but to average that plus in a tournament under pressure is some doing.
Oh,
There's a little bit of your mental aspect going into these tournaments, but you're gonna probably average 220 just to try to get up there, get up the ladder.
yeah. The last tournament that I went to, the scoring pace was a little lower. I could have made that cut. I think it was only like 38, 39 pins. I was out from the top 16. It depends what house you go to, and depends on what the scoring pace is and what pattern they got out. But I'm just gonna take one step forward and just try to make my goals just to make cuts. I cashed last week, So I got a check. So that was a good accomplishment. So I'm just going to come into this week and just have a different mindset and just try to make the cut. I'm not looking too far ahead. If I can make the cut, it would be a good thing. And then I'll just move forward from that.
You mentioned about the different houses and folks who not know what we're talking about when we're talking about houses, we're talking about different building elements, right? So basically in Bermuda, you really build basically out of work lanes, which is particular one house. But on tour or when you go away here, you're building different houses. Tell us some of the difficulties of building in different houses and the challenges that brings that you don't get every day at work lanes.
Well, it's a lot of challenges, depending on, like, you got to get your feet in right, depending on, you got to have your right shoes, you got to have your right, the soles on your shoes and stuff like that. So you got to make sure everything, you got to come in there prepared. So every house has got different characteristics. The lanes might hook early, depending on what pattern you put out. It doesn't matter. Some lanes might hook at a certain spot because that's where the house builders build. So you have to just go in there, and it's different surfaces. You've got wood lanes, synthetic lanes. It all depends. So when I go into a house, I look at it. I try to do my research before I go to the house. And then when I go into a house, I look at it. And then when I get to the practice session, I look at where the ball hooks far as right as possible because I'm a right-hander. So I look at where that ball hooks at the back of the end of the pattern. And then that's how I make my guesses. And then I just make my changes from there.
One of the things, I know you guys travel with many, many different bowls, and I know a lot of people will say, why so many bowls? But give us a sense of why you have so many different bowls. And then because you will watch a bull and when it's 2 pins up, he or she picks one bowl. If it's 3 or 4 pins up, they pick another bowl. It's not always the same bowl. What is the strategy and why is that?
Different bowls do different things. You want different bowls for longer oil patterns or shorter oil patterns. You want a spur bowl. That's your most important bowl. So when you leave a 10 pin, you want to be going straight at it. You don't want the bowl to hook at the end of the pattern. I took 9 bowls to these tournaments because I'm going to 2 tournaments. Usually I'll take about 6 bowls to international tournaments because I pretty much know what the pattern is. But I knew what these patterns were coming out, but like I said, I don't know the characteristics of the house. So I said, you may come out here with more options. So more options is better. Sometimes it could hurt you because sometimes you're overthinking, oh, I got to get this ball in my hand because you got to have the right combination at the right time. You got to have the right ball in your hand, the right hand release. There's a lot of variables in building that people don't know. It's a lot of information that people do not know. You have to have the right stuff in your hand at the right time.
And how have you developed that strategy, understanding, and all that it takes to get you to the level in which you're at?
I don't know. They call me the Bulldog for a reason. So I just, that's my nickname, that's my nickname, Bulldog. I just try to focus on every competition I go into. I just try to focus and I don't know, man. It's something that dig deep. I never quit, I don't want to, if I have a bad tournament, I have a bad tournament, but I always I just always have that word in my, something in my head just saying never quit, never quit.
Yeah. Well, we're going to take a quick commercial break, and when we come back, Jay, you're up.
Nuco is a company impressively dedicated to the production of coconut concoctions. Their motto is coconuts for life, and however that resonates, it seems to have done the trick for vegan snack lovers. Nuco uses 3 ingredients in their wraps: pure organic and GMO-free coconut meat, coconut water, and unrefined virgin coconut oil. Nuco extols them as the all-natural alternative to bread and tortillas. This month we're featuring gluten-free Nuco organic coconut wraps in a 5-pack. Lindo's, why go anyplace else?
My inspiration to write this book has to do with empowering. I want people to understand what it looks like when you are in a position when you don't have the tools around you. if you know me or don't know me, the game, the beautiful game of football, soccer, is and always was a way out. I'm still fearful on what to do, what would happen if I say something.
What can we do in this book to incorporate tools to help specifically our group of young people in Bermuda?
Could you imagine doing a read with little people and breaking everything down for them and having them to have a voice and having conversation pieces, if it's chapter by chapter?
Welcome back. Jay?
Hey, David, you talked about Coach. It's been with you guys, just over a year now? What has he brought to you guys as far as information and what have you learned from him since he's been on board with you guys?
Well, we signed with him like February, but COVID has like put restrictions on that, so we haven't really had that much training with him. We came down a couple months ago to get familiar with the team and stuff like that, and then we saw him in Guatemala. When we went to Guatemala, we had him, and just having that eyes behind you that knows the game and knows what the equipment does. You see me burning the motive stuff right here, so he knows everything about the motive equipment. And I haven't threw so much motive equipment before. So just having him behind us, telling us what balls and what's going to work at the right time is a very beneficial to me and the team. And I just want to put it out there. Like, I know you didn't ask me this question, but I just want to put it out there. We just lost Ronaldo Bean, one of our teammates, on Monday. So, just keep his family in your prayers and stuff like that. But it's taking the team for a toll right now. So everybody back home, shout out to everybody back home. Rest in peace, Ronaldo, man. Rest in peace.
Yeah, tough loss.
You talked about my good buddy there. So let's talk about, since we're here, let's talk about some good things about Ronaldo. I mean, he came up during the juniors. He's been building you guys for a while. Has made a few national teams. Tell me what did you like about Ronaldo's game, especially as a left-hander too?
Yeah, Ronaldo was all right, but he never had that never quit attitude, just like me. He never had that. He always wanted to build. He always wanted to build on that level. And I remember having conversations with him down the building alley multiple nights. Maycock, you gotta go. You gotta go. You got the talent to go. And I just that puts a hard on me. Like, it's not having him around is gonna be way different than the building alley. After we guys build leagues or practice, we guys drink, and he said multiple times, Maycock, you gotta get out there. You got the talent to get out there. And him, all the guys down the building now, they're gonna miss him all in his leagues. I weren't on his team, but for leagues and stuff. But I was on national team level. We're gonna miss him so much, man. But rest in peace. But that's sad.
You mentioned something just now about him pushing you to get out there. Obviously, you've came up in basically a renaissance of young bowlers have came through probably last 10, 15 years. And before that, we had a big group of Dean Lightbourne and Casey and a lot of those guys. But the revelation with you guys were Kai. Oh, man, I keep going on with all the guys that group you got. But why now? Why now? Why are you finally saying, you know what? Let me put my toe in the deep end and I'm going to go and test my skills. Why now?
I always wanted to be out here full time. I'm not out here full time. I just took a little couple of weeks out here, and then I come back and then go to Colombia, and then after that I'll go back to Dubai. So honestly, I didn't know all these tournaments are gonna happen like this. It's just a coincidence it happened like this. But I've been a PBA member since 2013. If nobody really, I don't know if anybody knows that, but I'm always came out here. I'm always build tournaments. Pretty much made cuts in Lubbock. I made a couple. I haven't made too much match play rounds like in the professional tour, but I'm ready to be out here. I want to be out here full time, and I'm ready. But I've been out here since I was 2013. But a lot of people don't know about that.
one of the things about being a professional in any sport, it's the financing part. And I know you and I have had our conversations about, you needing help in that regard and making it happen. Obviously, you have a bit of funding to do these ventures here. But what does it take financially, rough figures? What does it take for one to be on a tour for hypothetically 1 year?
It takes a lot. I actually, I give thanks for the BOA sponsoring me. That's put that first out there. The BOA sponsored me a lot coming out here. The thing is, you got to have the money up front, and it's not easy, man. It takes a little while for government to pay you back. I'm not gonna lie to you guys on that one. But to be honest, it takes. I did my BOA report, and they asked that question. And I did everything, and it's probably about anywhere from $50,000 to $60,000, at least $60,000 a year, if I could be comfortable. If I'm going all the places and moving to travel and hotels and stuff like that. So about to ask you a question, about $60,000, but I'm always looking for sponsors and stuff like that, and I give thanks for what the BOA has done to me and for me, and it's just the hard part, having the money up front and then waiting for them to reimburse us. That's the main thing. That's the hardest.
No,
especially right now, because I've got like 4 or 5 tournaments back to back. So I've got the PBA tournaments here. I just had Guatemala, and then Colombia, and then Dubai. That's 5 tournaments back to back, and I have to put all the money up front.
So tell me, okay, so generally you bowl in Bermuda, I would say, 4 or 5 times a week, because you got different leagues and then you got national team training. But now it's a little different because you're in competition. So what do you do in the interim of tournaments to ensure that you stay focused, in shape, and the like to be at your top come game day?
Trust me, fitness is one of the biggest keys out here. All the pros, mostly all the top guys, everybody thinks building is not a sport. You got to keep fit. I'm in the gym. I went gym yesterday, day before. I've been in the gym since I've been out there pretty much every day. Your diet, you got to eat good. I just can't, I ain't gonna lie to you guys. I just came from the some good food, soul food down in Orlando just now. I went down there and got some shark chicken, curry, all that type of stuff. So your diet and working out and practice. Like, yesterday I was in Frederick, Maryland still, and I went there and practice. The guy let me in there. He gave me the lanes, and I went there to practice. And tonight I'll probably go to the center where I'm gonna build the next tournament and practice. If not, then I'll go to another center and practice. But practice, eating good, and just being in the gym, leg work. That's the most important thing. Legs and shoulders and stuff like that. We do it. Building takes a toll on your body. A lot of people don't know about that, but it takes a toll.
I can imagine. Jay?
So obviously, let's talk about the elephant in the room, the protocols of COVID. Just prior to you coming on, we was talking about some of the professional players, NBA, some of the states not allowing folks to play indoors without being vaccinated. What are some of the protocols that the tournament you just came from and what you're looking into the next tournament? What are some of the protocols that you got to abide by?
Well, the last tournament we went to, we had to have a mask on as soon as we pretty much entered the building. But after that, everything was wide open. It wasn't if you're vaccinated around here, you could have your mask off. That's pretty much anywhere, especially in Florida. Florida's wide open right now, but Maryland was a little more stricter but it's your choice if you want to have your mask on or not. Out of the 96 people in the field, it was only one person wearing a mask in Maryland. So, hey, it's very open to me. Yeah, it was only like one person wearing a mask in Maryland.
Right. Now, I remember watching you guys live in Guatemala. There were some restrictions in Guatemala because there were times where when you weren't, I guess, up to bill, you guys were wearing masks. How did that affect the day-to-day handling of that? Because sometimes, people forget or they're comfortable in the environment they're in.
Nah, it was fine. Like in Guatemala, we have to have a mask on in the back if you're not building. But once you got to the approach, you could put your mask down
Hmm.
and then release the ball and then come back and then put your mask back up.
Right.
But yeah, it wasn't affecting me at all. I don't know about all the other players. I can't really speak for them, but it wasn't affecting me at all. So as soon as I got to the approach, I just put my mask down, released the ball, and then came back up. And then when I looked at everybody, I put my mask back up. That's it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But a lot of states and a lot of things might be getting back to that. But I know Florida's. I don't know. I haven't really been here to Bill yet, but I heard that it's been wide open. You don't have to have your mask on. So each state and each state's got a different rules.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Now, the tournament that you're going into this weekend, is it a 2-day tournament or a 1-day tournament?
It's a 2-day tournament. Well, practice is tomorrow, and then Saturday and Sunday. Saturday is qualifying, and then Sunday is the match play rounds and stuff like that. So about 2 days.
Oh, okay. All right. And obviously you'd be looking to improve on those 37 pins, but obviously scoring's a lot different from tournament to tournament. So because of the conditions, because of the lanes, because of a lot of other things. But how focused are you on improving what you were able to accomplish the last time? Because technically you could get more pins and still finish down the line.
Yeah.
So-
We're building on a different pattern this week too. We're building on 41. It's called the bear pattern, so it's 41 feet in length. Last week we were building on 39 feet. So this one's a little bit longer down the lane. The pattern, the oil pattern. A lot of people don't know, but the lanes get oiled and stuff like that. So now we're transitioning to a different oil pattern and a different house now. So now I'm gonna have a different whole mindset. What balls worked in Franklin, Maryland might not work here. So this is when you go to the practice session and you lay out your game plan. But I'll see what happens. I can't make no promises, and I just see. I hope I get hired. I hope I make the cut. That's my first step, to make the cut.
Yeah. Well, I want to wish you all the best. That's for sure. Jay?
Hey, before we go, David, 4 rapid questions. We need 4 rapid answers. One topic though. When was your first 300 game? When was your first 300 game professionally? How many 300 games have you built? And when was your last 300 game?
My first 300 was years ago. I can't really remember, but that was like when I was a teenager in Warwick Lanes. I really can't remember the first 300. I've had about 18 or 19 300s, and I haven't had a PBA competition 300. So hopefully this week I could get a PBA competition 300.
When was your last one?
The last one, probably like a year and a half ago. But we haven't built competition since for so long. So to be honest, coming out here, I'm not 100% sharp. To be honest with you guys, I'm not really 100% sharp because I haven't had the time to practice as much as I wanted to because the lanes have been shut down. Not because we can't go there, because government has shut it down for us. So I feel like government needs to get the guys in there, start training, and put our foot. I mean, we need to train. We can't come out here and compete because the rest of the world is not trained. The rest of the world is training. Trust me. These guys are not stopping because of COVID. These guys have been. Well, when we stopped down about a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, these guys have been building tournaments. So when I came back from Guatemala, I said to myself, I gotta step up my game. But if I can't practice, what can I do? You know what I mean?
Definitely. Well, again, good luck this weekend. We'll be in touch with you, see how you make out on Saturday. and hopefully you're into that round on Sunday and
I
get
hope
into the
so.
finals.
I hope so. Wish me luck, baby.
Yes, sir.
Baby.
Have a
Send
good
the
night.
money, baby.
All right. We're going to take a commercial break, and we'll be back with more of the Island Stat Sports Show. We'll be back. Thanks, David.
Yes, have a good night.
With perfect timing for the height of the summer, Greenhouse Bermuda brings us the island's newest iced tea, Newman's Own Organic Iced Tea in a kaleidoscope of delicious flavors. Most shoppers have seen Newman's Own in the condiment section, recognizable due to the founder's caricature prominently featured on the label, and many pick it up in the knowledge that 100% of the profit goes to registered charities. Newman's Own offers us a new refreshing thirst quencher, dry raspberry, lemon, peach, and passion fruit organic Newman's Own iced teas. Lindo's, why go anyplace else?
My inspiration to write this book has to do with empowering. I want people to understand what it looks like when you are in a position when you don't have the tools around you. If you know me or don't know me, the game, the beautiful game of football, soccer, is and always was a way out.
And welcome back. And as stated, we would be joined by the Minister of Sports, Dr. Ernest Peets. Good evening, Minister. How are you?
Hey, good evening. I do apologize for being late.
You're not late. You're right on time.
Right on time.
You're right on time. All is well?
We've been busy. Of course, COVID is really dominating our headlines right now. We've got a lot of work going on regarding managing this fourth wave.
Mm-hmm. Well, we wanted to talk to you to see if we can get an update regarding sports. We know we're in phase one. What needs to be done, or what has to happen, I guess, island-wide for sport to then move to the next phase? And will we see maybe a skipping of phase 2 to phase 3, or what's the process?
Yeah, so that's kind of the mindset that I have on tonight. That's the mindset that I had on day number 1 when we went to stage number 1. We relatively had a really good summer, at least in my opinion. I was really glad to see some of our signature events occur during the summer and really feature Safe Key and to enjoy those things quite safely. And then, of course, this fourth wave came right on the eve of our football season, and we haven't quite seen the end of it yet. But I believe that there is some light at the end of the tunnel. So as much as possible, yes. So once we get past this current outbreak, we certainly would like to get our sporting buddies, particularly football, for example, because that's the largest fall sport that we have, back to stage 3, stage 4 as quickly as we can.
Definitely. I know, obviously with the latest release of 10 more people passing to COVID, condolences goes out to all the family and friends of those loved ones. One of the things that I really like to harp on is the recovery. And of course, today's numbers were 99 testing positive, but we had somewhere in the region of just trying to confirm the number of 106 recoveries. So the recoveries today outweigh or outnumber the positives. So I think Jason and I were talking off air prior to tonight, and we were talking about the headlines always read the positive number, but it never reads the recovery number, because that's the trend we want to kind of highlight as well, because of the last two announcements, the recovery numbers have been higher than the positive numbers.
Yeah, that's certainly encouraging. The recovery numbers are important. We are concerned, of course, about, the number of hospitalizations that occur. And of course, when you have hospitalizations, there's always going to be some cases that unfortunately we're unable to save. But yeah, we're certainly glad to see that our recovery rates are climbing, and that our mortality rate is relatively low as it relates to our recovery rate. But every life is important, and I just want to thank Bermuda for being patient and compliant as much as possible.
Jay?
Well, Minister, welcome back.
Yeah, it's good to be back.
Nice to see you with a smile on your face. Last time I saw you, both your teams were doing bad that day. So,
Yeah,
I'm glad
this week our North London is colored red.
So I just want to go back a bit, because we had conversations over the last year, obviously, since you've been minister, regarding COVID, this fluid pandemic, because it's been fluid, goalposts have been changing. But our elite athletes, our national teams are still committed to these commitments.
Yes.
Has there been talks with the ministry, Department of Health, because we just had David Maycock on, speaking about lack of facilities to train due to the stage that we're in here currently. But we seem to, I won't say we seem to make concessions, but when you see other countries, or even when we host these major international events, it doesn't matter what stage we're in, we still seem to pull them off. My question to you, are we looking at our elite athletes, whether it's our national teams and whatever commitments they have, are we looking at them to give them, even though, take for instance, the bowling alley. Yes, we know the bowling alley is closed to the public, but the bowling alley is big enough that they can have 6 to 10 players in there spread out, not even 6 feet, probably 15 feet, to practice, to make sure that they will be able to fulfill these commitments. When we talk about our national football teams, the same thing, we have numerous fields, right? So we're not talking about fans, we're not talking about games, we're talking about practice. So I'm just using it as an example, because we seem to, when we have the international events, whether it's golf or whatever else, we seem to have these, I don't say concessions because it sounds low, but you know what I'm talking about. There always seems to be a will, there's a way.
Yeah, so you're certainly right. And to be quite honest, if I'm able to be frank with you guys tonight, as well as your viewers, the buck stops with me in a lot of cases. Therefore, I need to take responsibility in actually helping the country really raise its level regarding how we view sports. One of my most difficult tasks, of course, is trying to change the culture and the conversation around sport. By and large, at least in my opinion, I could be wrong, and if that be the case, I stand to be corrected. We by and large have a very recreational kind of mindset as it relates to sport, as opposed to a professional mindset. And when I take a look at larger jurisdictions and larger countries, of course, when their athletes and their programs are professional, there is a commitment regarding resources and a priority, even in the midst of war, even in the midst of a pandemic, that these professional sports need to continue, because any delay in a training right now affects the world qualifier 2 years from now.
Mm-hmm.
And if we're trying to compete on the global stage, there's something about our mental psychology towards sport that, Bermuda as a whole just needs to raise its game. Very fortunately, we have a few minority of our athletes who are able to break out of that sort of recreational mindset and be able to, go elite and go pro. But if we really want to do something as a nation, we're really going to have to raise that level ourselves. And that will change the conversation. So when we're in the midst of a pandemic, such as what we're dealing with now, we wouldn't have as much difficulty trying to find those carve-outs so that our national programs and our elite athletes can find the resources and the spaces to train while we're trying to, control, human behavior and actions as relates to COVID, for example. So that's a task. We're not there yet, but I do understand that needs to occur, and hopefully at some point in time, with the help of your viewers and your thoughts and views, and of course the views of the government as well as all of our NSGBs, we might be able to do that.
One of the things that we all know throughout the years that we have international commitments, both us as Bermudians and Bermuda has international commitments for international events to be staged here. We know we have one on the horizon. One was just canceled for mid-October. We know we have one on the horizon at the end of October. How does that? What has been the talk around your table, without speaking out of class and out of school, about ensuring that there's some level of consistency if and when the Gulf goes on, that there's some actual activity locally?
Yeah, that's the part of the conversation that gets a little dicey sometimes. And those two events that we just spoke about, they are sporting events. So let's not say that they aren't sporting events. But they come through tourism. So they're the tourism-sponsored events that come through the PTA. And they're not necessarily events that are organized and put on by the ministry or by our NSGBs. So we are involved sort of like as a secondary seat. And but from the general public's point of view, for example, it's quite possible that a BTA event can be materializing as relates to something being planned with the BTA. But let's say it's sailing or rugby, I may not hear about it as the Minister of Sport until a lot further down the planning progress and plan and so on and so forth. So having said that, from the general public point of view, a sporting event is a sporting event. It doesn't matter whether or not it's a bunch of rich people. It doesn't matter if it's a BTA event. It doesn't matter. So it's really about us drawing those comparisons that if we can do this, how come we can't do that? And then we have to try to figure that one out. So I certainly understand those scenarios. In a lot of cases, some of our larger events are sometimes able to pull off some of the COVID stuff a lot better because they have better resources. So for example, like one of the problems that we're going to have that we're trying to figure out right now is that when we get to the fall sports, because football has so many numbers, and not to mention all the other fall sports that have to start, testing is required. But we only have one lab that's testing, and it's doing everybody. It's doing, Front Street, it's doing sport, it's doing travel, it's doing everything, and we don't have a lot of resources. And then we have to prioritize, who gets those resources. And, and sometimes, unfortunately, when you're in a recreational kind of philosophical point of view and you're looking at your country, sport is seen as recreational, it's optional. For a lot of our kids and for a lot of our athletes, even though we may see their sport as recreational, they have aspirations of trying to compete, globally. They have aspirations around education. For some of our kids, this is their ticket to go off to college. And and when they can't play, those opportunities begin to shrink.
Just before we take a commercial break, the problem that we're going to find ourselves down the road is another health issue, because if these kids are not out running around and exercising, then we're going to start talking about obesity and all that other stuff as we come out of this pandemic, if we ever come out of it. But it's got to be a happy medium somewhere. We have to find that very, very soon. We're going to take a commercial break. When we come back, we'll have more with Dr. Ernest Peets, the Minister of Sport. We'll be right back.
Nuco is a company impressively dedicated to the production of coconut concoctions. Their motto is coconuts for life, and however that resonates, it seems to have done the trick for vegan snack lovers. Nuco uses 3 ingredients in their wraps: pure organic and GMO-free coconut meat, coconut water, and unrefined virgin coconut oil. Nuco extols them as the all-natural alternative to bread and tortillas. This month we're featuring gluten-free Nuco organic coconut wraps in a 5-pack. Lindo's, why go anyplace else?
My inspiration to write this book has to do with empowering. I want people to understand what it looks like when you are in a position when you don't have the tools around you. If you know me or don't know me, the game, the beautiful game of football, soccer, is and always was a way out. I'm still fearful on what to do, what would happen if I say something.
What can we do in this book to incorporate tools to help specifically our group of young people in Bermuda?
Could you imagine doing a read with little people and breaking everything down for them and having them to have a voice and having conversation pieces, if it's chapter by chapter?
And welcome back. Minister, I think I have to ask this one particular.
Sure.
Where do the numbers need to be for us to move to phase 2 in sport?
So there is no magic number per se, so we're committed to the resumption of our sport. That's never been a question in my mind or in my office. So it's really about when. So there's no magic number, but we certainly need to see a decline in the cases. So you're looking at the reproduction number and the transmission number as relates to the community transmission. That is a real issue, because one of the things that we're trying to do in cooperation with the Ministry of Health is we're trying to decrease the possibility of a super spreading event. And one of the ways we do that, of course, is have to have health emergency measures in place, and then, of course, using all of your COVID guidelines. And then in our ministry case, is dealing with the large group exemptions. Eventually, we're going to come out of this wave, and hopefully in the next week or so, we'll see some positive numbers coming down as relates to community spread. But for me right now, I know those numbers are going to take care of themselves, because we're doing all the right things, and community is doing all the right things. And eventually, in a week or in 2 weeks, the things you're doing now, you're going to begin to see the difference in the numbers that come out from the health department. The most important piece for me right now is not necessarily what the magic number is actually having the availability of resources to do the testing, so that all of our NSGBs can get their testing done for their athletes, particularly those who are not vaccinated. Because as you guys might be aware, that there is no discretion in the minister's portfolio. As much as I would like to have it, a large group exemption requires a safe key. And I don't have the ability to grant an exemption and remove the safe key requirement. It's embedded in the law. Mm-hmm. So as safe key has been embedded in the law, the only way you can get a safe key is either through vaccination or through testing. And so we're going to need a robust testing system in place, because we're going to have hundreds of athletes who potentially have to test at least once a week, maybe even twice a week, depending on what the situation calls for regarding the risk of COVID.
Okay.
Yeah, just to piggyback on that, you mentioned the layer. I mean, we can have all this testing, but if we only got one layer, it's still gonna, or 2 layers, it's still gonna be a bottleneck.
Yes. Yes.
So even if we look at having separate testing sites, especially for the athletes or for each sport, it's still going to 2 layers.
Yeah, so there's been some creativity happening behind the scenes. You guys might be aware that the government is got an antigen sort of program coming out. Tests that are not going to be available. You can buy them retail, perhaps from pharmacy in another week or two. I have got information from our good friend from this show. You guys might know Macy O'Dill. He's been talking to me over the last week or so. And I know the government is interested in bringing out lateral flow testing. So we're certainly trying to work out a plan now that if we get lateral flow tests, on how we can incorporate that into our testing regime so that when we're ready to go ahead and execute the large group exemption for our large fall sports, we can, give them a little PowerPoint presentation, like this is exactly how it's going to work. Let's see if we can talk about, how we can tweak it and fine tune it so that, it works for the majority of the clubs that we need. And then we just go from there. I know last year, one thing I can tell you about sports people, they know how to follow the rules. So, because you're guided by referees and umpires. And so we're used to rules and we enjoy our games and we enjoy our sport. So by and large, I can say that, whatever we put in place regarding the large group exemption, that I know our clubs and our athletes are going to support that and be compliant with it.
Yeah, we're going to come into the winter months soon, and of course, it prior to COVID was called the cold and flu season. How are we planning to address a cold and not COVID?
I do not have a specific answer to that, besides for the fact that you and I both know that COVID symptoms and the flu symptoms certainly mirror one another. It would be very, very difficult as a layperson to be able to tell the difference without actually taking a COVID test or whatnot. The flu season, of course, is something that we certainly have to be careful of because if you catch the flu, there's the possibility, of course, of compounding issues with having the flu and having COVID being rampant in the community at the same time. So most likely our hospitals and our doctors are still going to manage the flu the way we typically would. But if you've been watching the news, of course, in North America, they're already starting what they call booster shots, which, at least in my opinion, in my little sort of lay mind, it sounds exactly how they would treat the flu, so and the flu actually mutates as well, and each year, if you're interested in a flu shot, you go ahead and get your booster. But I don't know how that's going to work out here. I mean, the world hasn't finished its initial vaccination rollout, so I would imagine if whenever a country gets to a booster shot, it's probably for the most vulnerable.
Okay.
Minister, I've heard you speak many times, the passion that you have for sports, not only as the minister of sport, but also as a parent, as a coach. You know what sports does for our community. Yeah. When we look at these events that I'm glad, thank you to you, the cricket events over the summer, but also when we see the success from our men's soccer team and our women's soccer team, and then we look at Florida, you see what, even through those COVID, what sports does for that moment of time.
Yes.
But you obviously you got some colleagues who doesn't have the same passion you do. What would you say to that person who doesn't have that passion and what you believe sport really does for us, not only as a person, but also as a country?
When this particular fourth wave came out, all of us, of course, were concerned. Many people were wondering whether or not we were going to go into shutdown and whether or not the airport was going to close and whatnot. And, we found a way to sort of weather the storm as best we could. It's really, really risky, of course, but, we think that we have the right mix of protocols. And if people can just cooperate and practice, wearing your mask. I can't tell you how many times I've seen people wear a mask and not wear it properly. But having said that, when I was thinking about Flora, and of course, her arrival is just in a few weeks. We don't know exactly where the COVID situation is going to be. In my mind, I was like, we can't cancel a celebration for our Olympic gold medalist. She found a way to train in COVID. She found a way to compete in COVID. We need to find a way to celebrate in COVID. And I'm pretty sure we will. I actually, tell you the truth, I know we will. But having said that, the golf tournament is coming up. I'm glad to be able to tell your listening audience that that event's going to occur. We're hopeful that it will bring a lot of relief and excitement. But at the same time, we certainly want to see local sports up and running. You talked a little earlier, perhaps before the break, about how devastating COVID has been emotionally and mentally upon our athletes, particularly upon our students. I don't know what the long-range impact is going to be for COVID as it relates to how it's impacted our education and the development of our youth. That is still yet to be determined. But I do know in the short term, our kids really need to be out there, enjoying the outdoors and to do so safely. The longer that we have these types of issues going on, we're just compounding problems that we already know that we have. So I want kids to go back to school as quickly as possible. I'd like to see our sports up and running safely as soon as possible as well.
Talk about that. Talk about the minister. I mean, what would it look like for sports in schools? I mean, has that started?
Right. So right now there is a restriction on gatherings at 20. And that's both inside and outside. And that doesn't come from my ministry. It comes from health. And there's no argument here about that. So until those numbers change in the emergency powers, then we have a little bit more flexibility. But right now, I know that a lot of teams, particularly like, for example, our cricket team is preparing for their upcoming situation. They're still bound by a 20 limit, capacity. So the coaches and the trainers are using the 20, but they're doing it very creatively. So if I need 19 now, I'll do another 19 2 hours from now. And you just have to find a way to sort of work within the rules. And I think they're doing quite well at doing that. I talked to Cal Blankendale earlier this week. So I try to check in every once in a while just to make sure, our major sports are doing as well as they could be. And if anything I can do to support them, I want them to know they can just reach out to me directly.
Well, Minister, I think, not to cut you off, but I think that was part of the question I'd asked you earlier. You just brought up the example of the men's football team. Just say they said the numbers are 20, right? The local numbers are 20. We know these guys have a commitment, or the cricket team has a commitment.
Yes.
How we can make sure, because these guys, when they do leave this island, right, yes, they're being tested, every day, every other day, per se? So why can't we try to find a regimen where we're going to test these guys very frequently, unlike the average person, so they can't have these 30 people training sessions and stuff like that? Because like I said, these are some, because I don't want to call them concessions, because we see this in other countries being done. But it seems like when we come to our local sport, we put everybody in the same pool, if you know what I'm talking about. And we're not getting nothing with the elites. That's what I was.
Yeah, we kind of talked about that at the beginning. We get lumped into the general population is because by and large we're a country that sees sport as a recreation rather than as an industry or as something that's considered to be elite. And when it's professional and it's elite, it's not optional. You got shareholders that you have to answer to, and you got bills that you need to pay. And I'm not saying we're putting money over people's lives. But what I'm saying is that when you have a professional sport, you have resources and a commitment in place to make sure that you can do whatever you got to do safely. So we're testing a lot of people here. We have one of the highest testing per capita populations in the Western Hemisphere. So I'm proud about that. But that is still not enough for our sports. So we have to find better ways and more efficient ways so that our sporting bodies have the flexibility to test. I've said from the very, very beginning, what makes sport easier to approve is knowing your status. So knowing your status gives a great deal of trust and a great deal of security. It's not perfect, because when you're testing in a period of time, but that's better than just doing no testing or just guessing. So if players are testing on a regular basis, we know that testing does catch a couple of cases, and if it does, we can actually prevent a spreading event. And if we can test on a regular basis, they can practice, they can play. If we have SafeKey, for example, in place for spectators, we know that how that works. We can get sports up and running, but it's going to have testing. It has to have testing to make it work.
Minister, come tomorrow, the Bermuda Football Association will be hosting their annual general council meeting with the clubs, and I know there's thousands of footballers out there waiting to hear what the outcome of the meeting will be. From your office's standpoint, what are the options with the current state? What are the options for football to return?
So right now there are two things happening simultaneously. So we have stage one, and we have a large group exemption required at 20. So teams can train in groups of 20 or less. Youth soccer, there perhaps might be able to, depending on what age group, might be able to actually start their competitive season if you can get a game together with without having a large group exemption. So, for example, the U9s or U7s, it's possible to put them in a bubble and perhaps have a game and not have to worry about having a group of 20. It's possible. That's not encouraged at the moment, because I did say 2 weeks ago, hey, listen, what we can do to sort of arrest this phase is to have everyone voluntarily stand down.
Mm-hmm.
And because I really want the kids to go back to school, and for lots of reasons, that's kind of the beginning piece of the puzzle, is getting kids back to school. And then we can begin to add some other activities such as sport on the weekends and whatnot. So my message, to the general body of the AGM for the BFA is, we're going to have football this year, even if it's in an abbreviated season for between now and Christmas, before the Christmas break. We will have a season. I would even encourage them that whatever we didn't play in October, we add that on to the end of March, or whenever the season ends, and continue to play, because our kids need as many minutes on the ball as possible.
Okay. All right. Well, we look forward to the outcome of the meeting tomorrow night with the Bermuda Football Association, and we'll continue to stay in touch with you, Minister, and your ministry as far as updates regarding sports, because I think a lot of times in the delivery of a lot of the messages coming out of the government, sport is lumped in, as Jason said, is lumped in with everything else, and it's then comes a supplementary of and sports kind of thing. So we want to make sure that the sporting public is informed of what is going on, and getting you on and other officials from your ministry to make sure that it's properly delivered. I think that's the best way to move forward from here on in.
So
okay.
we certainly have a lot of talent out there. Our U20 team, both girls and boys, in my opinion, are poised. They can go really far. Yes,
definitely. Well, the women have advanced. The boys are getting ready to do, I believe, October. I think there's a window in November for the national team to be back in action, both male and female. So there's a lot of international competition, and of course the cricket team. And then let us not forget, we still have athletes preparing for the Junior Pan Ams at the end of November. We need to ensure that those athletes, and I think that's what Jason was alluding to, the elite athletes, we have to figure a way to be creative and allow them to get as much time in the training activity that is needed for them to prepare to represent all of us, because at the end of the day, they represent us, when they're on the stage. And what we don't want is them to have less of the opportunity to prepare than their opponents, because then they're judged by the result, and everyone forgets the challenges faced.
And it certainly has a ripple effect.
Yes.
Throughout the entire sporting world back home.
Yes.
But also keep in mind, I've heard that President Joe Biden may be having a presidential proclamation that may come into effect in November, that anyone traveling to the United States has to be vaccinated. That may not necessarily affect someone our age, but when you're talking about someone who's under 20, I'm just a little concerned about that. I don't know exactly what's going to happen.
Right.
But we primarily travel to the U.S. to get to all of our sporting destinations. So I'm hoping that doesn't negatively affect our U20 team.
Yeah. I mean, these are the options. We don't control anybody else's border. We can control ours. But if those are the rules, then you either put your hand up and say, I'll do it, or you put your hand up and say, I'm not going to do it. But say it early enough that the coaches could then focus in on those that are willing to meet the requirements in order to represent the country. Because, we keep hopping and holding whether or not someone is going to get vaccinated or not. I think we're past that right now. If they're not, they're not. But we need to work with what we can work with in order to follow the rules to get off the island and into competition. So it is what it is.
Cool.
Okay.
All right. Hopefully I'll see you guys soon. Later this year, we've got the Junior Pan Am Games. So
yes.
You're ready to start talking about that.
Definitely. I'll have you back for that. That team should be announced sometime shortly. So, so hopefully, we're represented well in Colombia, and some more medals can be won.
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah, definitely. Well, folks, I want to thank you very much for joining us on this edition of the Island Stat Sports Show. Jay, see you next week.
Yes, well, just before we go, Earl, I just want to say once again condolences to the family of the Bean family, our Burling family, our good friend he was, and I wish the family, all our heartfelt condolences to them.
And with that, we say good night.
Thank you.